So our next panel, we want to discuss some of these programs that we have in order to grow talent so that we can have an innovation ecosystem. So I would invite my panelists to come up, please, if you will, and we can have a discussion about building talent. So I'd like to begin first, if everyone could just give a brief introduction of yourselves and your background and what you're doing here along those lines about developing talent, and then we'll dive into a discussion.
My name is Igor Shoifot. I was born not that far from here in Siberia, in Novokuznetsk. I live in San Francisco. I'm an investment partner at a venture capital company called TNT Investments. The value of my portfolio is about $1 billion. I've been actively investing, and I also have an honor of being the chairman of the board of directors of Happy Farm Tea Nation. So extremely, extremely happy to see you here.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Rafael Martins de Lima. I'm professor of finance of IE Business School in Madrid. I am PhD in economics, MBA from INSEAD, and Master of Science in Industrial Engineering. I currently also I'm partner of Martins de Lima Partners, and I act as an expert witness in our international arbitration processes. Beforehand, I used to be managing director of Santander, Banco Santander, and consultant of McKinsey & Company.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dennis Dutrey, and I'm with the Nazarbayev University. Before that, I was with the World Bank, and I've been involved in Kazakhstan since 2001. So I'm deeply committed to this country, and I think this gathering is an indication of the forward-looking nature of this country, and I think it's terrific. Why am I here? Well, that's a good question. I think the answer lies in the fact that I'm deeply committed to making Nazarbayev University the university that Kazakhstan needs, not necessarily some clone of a global institution. And a large part of that is to teach our students how to innovate, become entrepreneurs, take risks, and as the earlier panel said, learn to fail. And that in this culture is really tough to do. So I'm looking forward to some guidance on that. So I'm delighted to be here and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Gani. I work at Center for International Programs. I'm the president of the Bolashak program. I'm Bolashak alumni myself. Before that, I worked with the National Analytical Center under the government. Then Nazarbayev University. I have a specialist degree in international relations from the Eurasian National University, Master of Public Administration degree from the Monterey Institute of International Studies in California, and Executive MBA degree from Nazarbayev University. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So could you just give a brief intro?
I am an entrepreneur. So I become now I am living in Singapore. So I am independent director of some government funds like DAMU, who is responsible for developing entrepreneurs, supporting this. Okay.
Thank you. So it's we actually have people that are developing entrepreneur programs all over the world, which I think is fantastic. And Gani, maybe you can give us an introduction. We heard last panel about the Bolashak program,
Sure.
so you can tell us more about the programs.
First of all, I joined the plenary session, the opening session, and I heard the Prime Minister speaking about his takeaways. And he importantly mentioned the importance of the education, the role of education in Kazakhstan to develop the intellectual capacity for innovations, for developing. I heard the speech of Mr. Minister, Mr. Bisekeyev, who also, and Mr. Bishembayev, who also talked extensively talked about the role of education, about developing the capacity of our people, and the role of Bolashak program. Bolashak program is in existence since 1993. For 22 years, this program now is helping to contribute to capacity development of Kazakhstan. Right now we have 11,000 scholarship recipients. 9,000 of them came back, and they are working in different fields. Many of the Bolashak scholars now, they're actually in startup movement as well, which is very important. And this program is aimed at developing this capacity further. We are very happy that Mr. President Nursultan Nazarbayev, our government, is dedicating so much attention to this program and helping it to move forward, to keep perfecting itself. And for the next 5 years, we have another plan, which is very ambitious as well. We do not plan to decrease the number of scholarships. For the next year, we have even more scholarships, also despite all the crisis situation, devaluation, and other developments. First thing. Second thing, we are now focusing on engineers and entrepreneurs. I think it's also a good sign, because starting next year, we'll have a special dedicated quota category for the engineers, so we'll help engineers to get education under Bolashak. Second, we open the MBA program. Starting next year, 10 people will get admitted to 10 top global MBA business schools of the world can get Bolashak scholarship. And they don't have to be state civil servants, they don't have to be, I don't know, in the government sector. They have to be just citizens of Kazakhstan who got admitted to these top MBA schools. And I think this is a great achievement, trying to adapt to the modern reality, to the needs of Kazakhstan's economy, and to the purpose of our today's audience.
So that's, I find that pretty amazing. 90% of people come back after going overseas to get their education. Have you seen anything like this before? 90% of these people that are going off and getting or have their education abroad are actually coming back to the country, right? So this is one of the things we used to hear a lot about, brain drain. Yes.
I mean, I've heard it one other place, but it's pretty unique, and it's partly. But I think we need to think back that the Bolashak program was launched 25 years ago or so. I mean, today it looks like a no-brainer. But when it was launched, it showed the incredible vision of President Nazarbayev for this country. He knew then, and this is long before oil crises and problems with Russia and China and anything else, he knew then that the future of this country lies in diversification away from natural resources, and the only source of that diversification is its people, and the only source of its people is investment. And I think what Nazarbayev University is trying to do is to supplement and complement the Bolashak program. We are, by the way, the largest employers of Bolashak graduates in Kazakhstan, which tells you something about the quality of the people, because we are essentially a global institution. And Nazarbayev University is trying to essentially substitute in part for the undergraduate programs of the Bolashak program, so that the Bolashak program can focus on graduate programs going forward. But we're doing that as well. But I think one of the points I want to make is that while formal education is a key part of the future of any country, entrepreneurship and informal education and practical experience is fundamental to changing the culture of a country. And that goes way beyond classroom learning. And one of the things we're emphasizing at Nazarbayev University is that innovation can come from anywhere. Often doesn't, by the way, come from academic faculty, who are not exactly the most innovative people in the world. I mean, universities, I think, face the following challenge. They all talk a good game, create critical thinking, take risks, etc. But then they reward knowledge about the past, not innovation. We need to change that, and Kazakhstan, I think, is on the cutting edge of trying to do that. We have a program that I'm happy to talk about later that is trying to use a specific set of companies to help teach students at Nazarbayev University about entrepreneurship, risk-taking, and even failure. So thank you. Excuse me?
Yes.
I agree. Mr. Nazarbayev developed one of the best programs like Bolashak in the CIS country. But in my means, a lot of students after graduation stayed in some comfortable countries. So in my means, one of the better solutions to develop the same like Nazarbayev University in the other cities in Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan has one of the huge territory in the world. Yeah, a lot of people don't have chance to come and live in Astana. So if government developed another region in Kazakhstan and opening some specialization university like mining, different specialization. So it will be better to develop some industry in Kazakhstan. So my offer to develop the region university and organize some joint venture with some best university in the world. If we look to Singapore, we know a lot of university has some joint project like INSEAD and another university. So talent, growth talent depends on the background. So if we develop skills, knowledge, so we have chance to develop and to increase competence in our country. Okay,
Well, I would like to say that the world is going to become much more global than it is today, and it's becoming. Actually, I studied my MBA in INSEAD, by the way, 20 years ago in Fontainebleau, and nowadays INSEAD has two locations, both in Singapore and France. But I mean that I do believe that it's going to become more global. My students in ABC school, I don't have more than 2 of the same nationality. And many of them, they want to return to their countries, but they choose to go abroad for a while. And many times, the visa requirements are the problems. Right? In any case, I think that education is going to become an innovation and talent even more important because there are lots of jobs, lots of work that are going to disappear, like driving. Like, for example, nowadays, we're speaking English, but I think in a while we will have devices here that will allow us to understand any language, right? So people, will have to dedicate even more time to education, and innovation.
Thank you. Igor, you have thoughts on the
Just a couple of words. I think one thing, I have this privilege of running the board of directors at T-Nation Happy Farm, and one of the amazing things that I didn't expect to see here is how wonderfully so many young people speak English, how well they actually communicate, how good they are at presenting things, how great they are at grasping the essence, and there are lots of really, really great minds here. So one of the things I would suggest as somebody who was born in the former Soviet Union and who lives in the United States is if you guys could pay more attention to globalizing, if you guys could pay more attention to having English learned at schools as early as possible, to having subjects taught in English, not just English language itself, and to having whole courses at universities, not just 1 or 2 chosen best universities, but at a whole bunch of different universities, having courses in English, you would strengthen your country very much. That's just short idea. Thanks.
I can't resist. Nazarbayev University is an entirely English language university. Its faculty are internationally recruited and all the classes are in English. And we have the best students you will ever find anywhere in the world. They are exactly as you say. They're articulate, they grasp things quickly, and they're the future of this country, I guarantee you. And that's why we're all sitting here.
And I think we have a few students or alums from your university in the program, which is fantastic. But my point is that Nazarbayev is one of the best universities, right? So my point is that besides this 1 or 2, 3 universities, I think it's very important to have it at regional universities, schools, etc.
And the president has also launched the Nazarbayev Intellectual Schools, which are sort of magnet schools around the country. They're trilingual, seriously trilingual, so the kids come out fluent in 3 languages, English being 1, Russian, Kazakh. And I agree. This is like, ironically, it's geographically huge, like a small European country. In order to globalize it, it needs to deal with the language issue, and it is a challenge. I mean, there's clearly pride in the national language and the language of Kazakhs, and the need in the regional context to speak Russian. But the global language is English, whether we like it or not. And for those of us that we're born in it means we never learned another language, which is terrible, absolutely awful. But, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. But, I mean, I think the country is committed to that. And I think one of the great visions of the president is that Kazakhstan needs to be part of the global community, and that language is an important element of that. So I agree with you very strongly.
So my experience in a lot of MBA programs and university programs is that a lot of the schools market very well that they teach entrepreneurship, but actually how they teach entrepreneurship is really difficult and often wrong. I'm wondering maybe what your experiences are with actually teaching entrepreneurship. Can we teach it?
Excuse me. 2 years ago, I spoke one of the Astana Economic Forum. My offer to government, to Kazakhstan government, how to develop entrepreneur environment. So I thought one of the best, I think, to open in all universities some semester for basic entrepreneur rules. It might means when I try to research this program, I found some university who develop the same course in USA, and some other like Singapore countries, they develop entrepreneur course. So I think now we are with our government fund DAMU, we are developing now some pilot to promote some basic course for entrepreneurs, and in the future I hope if we will be success, we develop this in the other university, because if you want to become farmer, so you need to have enough knowledge for entrepreneurs. If you finish graduate the agricultural university or something, so dentist the same. Not enough medical skills. Very important. So I want to organize some system approach how to develop entrepreneurial skills.
Rafael?
Yes. Well, I would like to say that when I studied my MBA, the students wanted to go, the first alternatives was investment banking and management consulting. McKinsey, Goldman Sachs, things like that. Nowadays, I think it's very healthy that students want to make their own startup. Okay? So the MBA schools need to, to offer that opportunity. What we do at IEB school is that we have a venture lab. Okay, to that venture lab, the main thing is that we attract venture capitalists, private equity firms, that they invest money, in the startups the students are doing, and that's a reality. That's a reality because, for example, last year I used to manage one of these theses, one of these projects, and it was an application that was a bridge between banks and smartphones. So when you demonstrate that you are making realities, students do their startups, and the best thing is to attract venture capital to the school.
Thank you.
Let me be a little controversial. I think most young people are innately entrepreneurial and risk-taking, and the system beats it out of them. We have to create an environment that nurtures that, not drives it down. And I see that very strongly in many universities. So, I mean, and one of the speakers in the earlier session said that it's about the environment in which entrepreneurship develops. Fundamentally, people have to be allowed to experiment, take risks, and fail. And in many, particularly the post-Soviet space, that is a very tough order, because failure is punished very severely in most of these areas. And that has to change fundamentally. You just will not get entrepreneurs coming forward. People will take the tried and true path, and that's not what we're looking for. So I think creating facilities for people to share ideas and brainstorm and so forth, and then a little nurturing to help them develop those ideas is what's needed. And it's not just scientists. Sometimes the best entrepreneurs and idea creators are just people from, not even in universities, outside. We have to bring them inside. We have to create a welcoming environment for people with ideas, period. I mean, if you go, the great U.S. entrepreneurs are from all over the scale. So we need to do that this year, not be hierarchical, but be inclusive. Thanks.
So Silicon Valley has Stanford, Boston has MIT. In your view, what is actually the role of the university in the startup ecosystem? So you say bring people in, and we can teach them there. But what about how does the university actually contribute to the startup ecosystem that is outside its own world?
So in terms of, I've been teaching at Berkeley, NYU, and UCSF for 15 years. In terms of what universities can and should do, especially here, is they're really at the very grassroots, at the very, very beginning of the whole process of innovation, of the whole process of creating startups, creating entrepreneurial ventures, and where they can change young people there, where they can play a great role in creating of the ecosystem, is combining several things. One, the education, which they're good at, that's what they do. Two, bringing people from the real world, as you mentioned, venture capitalists, but also entrepreneurs, especially the alums. Usually the alums love their universities, they love to help their schools, they love to talk to the people and bring them into the real business. And three, I think it always helps if some local, if not everything is happening in Astana and Almaty. Some stuff is happening in Shymkent and Karaganda and elsewhere. And it's very, very helpful when local, not just authorities, but the local leaders, community leaders, etc., come over and help and also get help. So it's sort of the best of all three worlds, where students actually create some initiatives. The university says, well, here's what you can do, guys. Here are our labs where you can, put together drones, robots, etc. But also where people from the real world come and say, look, guys, you can actually help us with this division. You can help us in marketing and PR and technology development. So actually making things for real versus just, sitting in classrooms and, listening to lectures and writing something.
That's great. Anyone else?
Rafael? Well, I would like to add, in our school, instead of having, 90% of the professors are not academic, people that come from, from business. So, for example, the guy that is teaching marketing is somebody that is a marketing manager. So he teaches the students how to, the last product I launched, in last year. It is something different, with two academic professors that would be fantastic at making articles, but students want to see the real life.
We see that incredibly clearly at Nazarbayev University. Our students get extraordinarily excited by the speakers we bring in from non-academic areas, entrepreneurs, people that have developed businesses around the world, and we've been very good at that. And the response is just outstanding. Just to go back to the question of what universities do, I mean, I think entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs, but they're also citizens. And universities fundamentally need to create citizenship. They need to have broad basis in the arts, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, again, in the old Soviet space, there's a tendency to focus narrowly on the sciences and engineering and so forth. I think that's a mistake, and if we're creating future citizens that are going to lead this country, they need to have a broad basis in a lot of areas. And then universities need to provide the bridge to businesses, to entrepreneurship, and to the society, not just in Astana, but throughout Kazakhstan. And that ideas are not necessarily, great ideas are not generated by scientists. They're generated by people who see a need, something that needs, a service that needs to be provided. And then they need to be linked to people with the technical knowledge to solve that problem. That's how I think the process needs to work. And it's tough, but the universities can play an important role in that.
I think that's a great point. I know in my own startup, I need people that can write. It's almost the hardest thing to find are people that write well. And you need people that are social and can go and have conversations with human beings out there. And so it's easy for us to focus on engineering and technical abilities, but what is required is this broad-based education and a citizen of the world mentality even. So yes, please.
I would personally add that Kazakh people are very entrepreneurial by nature, and it is in our genes. It's just there were different circumstances in our history when initiative and risk-taking was oppressed, particularly in the Soviet time. That's my personal opinion. And now when Kazakhstan got independence, I think we have so many opportunities for developing this initiative spirit, to take risks, also to take reasonable risks, particularly in the modern environment. Going back to the education system, I think Nazarbayev University is a very great example of how we can develop the local capacity. Bolashak also broad-based. I mean, it's a well-known recognition that there is a acknowledgement in the society that Bolashak was a very strong contribution to Kazakhstan's development. But also preparing 1,000 people every year or training another 1,500 people every year is not sufficient to have a big critical mass of people, of talent in Kazakhstan. That is why I think, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, we need to do more. We need to have more universities like Nazarbayev University. We need to have more education programs starting from the kindergarten, high school, middle school, etc. So I think I personally came here not to just say that Bolashak is a great program or to boast that. I mean, I think everyone realizes that it's a great program. But the thing is what we can do more, how we can develop talent more. And because for me, it is personally important what our audience thinks about maybe there are some ideas and suggestions, and what our panelists think about international panelists, what we can do more in developing Kazakhstani talent.
Well, thank you. That's a great way to wrap up the panel, Gani. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our panelists.